Hey guys, I'm live. It's Tuesday. It's the 1st of August. It's a brand new month. Um, Brand new month is always good, full of possibilities. Everything's ahead. Full month of training, full month of yoga, full month of meditation. Although, honestly, I guess I divide things more seasonally now than month by month, week by week, day by day. Yesterday, I didn't even realize it was Monday until I was walking and noticed that there was more walking early. Um, it's still a good 20 minutes before sunrise. I noticed there was more cars in the past couple of days. Somebody waiting for a bus, looking completely miserable too, by the way. Um, and I realized that it was the start of a new week and people were commuting, going to work, um, that kind of stuff. I'm so far out of that typical routine these days. Have been in a while. Um, Before COVID, less so because I was doing some personal training. So I was traveling, going to people's houses, a few people, or they would come to my house. But with COVID, and then my father needed more care, and I was afraid to bring people to the house. Um, the vow that I made was my father was not going to, and he was still in fairly good health at the time for being in his 90s. But the promise was he was not going to die from COVID. He was not going to die alone, separated from his family, not going to make it to 90 plus, surviving the Depression, surviving World War II, putting yourself through college, excellent grades, raising a family, all the troubles that followed that type of life. And even the most ordinary life is going to be filled with some sort of trouble. That's just the nature of life. Um, but he wasn't going to get to the end of his life and then die isolated, not suffering that way. And I'm happy to say that he did not. He was in hospice at home. I was with him at his very last moment. But that further put me in that place of not so much isolation, but um, not separate, but removed in a certain sense from that everyday pattern of life, that um, the routine of getting up and going to work and having someone tell you when you can take a break, um, regimented by others and their belief of how you should spend that time. And it's been a while since I've been in that grind, and I'll do everything I can not to go back. Um, Nothing the matter with it. Uh, Perfectly okay. Do what we have to do to get through life. Always. Do what we have to do to pay your bills. But don't suppress your own happiness, your own growth, your own uh, spiritual, emotional, psychological, physical needs by um, fully believing that that's the way it has to be. Kind of sad that we do believe that. However, we do. So, yeah, my days sort of run together. I know when it is 6 pump burpee day. I know when it is Navy SEALs Day. Today was Navy SEALs Day. Recently, I know when it is the mixed session, pull ups, burpees, dips, that kind of stuff. So I do have um, I do have a schedule. I just don't have and I have my rituals. I have my own regimented um, points that I work to. As I mentioned quite often, I'm up really early. Lately, it's been before 4 a.m. Today it was about 3:50-ish. Actually, it was probably up about 3:20. Um, but I stayed in bed, slept sort of intermittently until about 3:45, 3:50, somewhere around there. I got up before my alarm went off. To start my day. A little differently now. Not that it's of any great interest. I switched around my dental care from before my meditation to after my meditation. It gives me a little bit more time to meditate. It gives me a little more from bed to the bench, from bed to sitting. A little more seamless, actually. I'm up. Hey, Mocha. I'm up. Take care of bathroom needs. I do my breath work, morning breath of fire. And then I'm sitting, meditation. And then I'm up and I take care of my dental needs after that. And then I get my water boiling, I do my yoga, my 1 cup of coffee, and then I write. Used to be I would write until I was done. Not even thinking about leaving my desk until everything I had to write was completely on the page, on the screen. I didn't have to post it right away, but I would at least have it written down. Aldo, how are you? Aldo, have you met Milka McCarty before? I know you've been in the same chat sessions before. I don't know if you had a chance to say hi to each other. Getting ready to work. Regular work or workout? I'm talking about my morning routine. I had mentioned how my own the own work that I do now, teaching meditation, writing, stuff along those lines, have sort of separated me from that morning grind routine of going to work, regular work. Good for you. You're a tattoo artist, right? That is something Mocha and I both, Mocha more so than me, as far as tattoos. It's funny, I took her for her very first tattoo, and now 147 tattoos later on her part. Now, I actually don't remember how many she has, but she has more than I do. We're going to have to fly out. You're in Iowa? We're going to have to fly out to Iowa for a special tattoo just from you. Or every once in a while, they'll have tattoo shows in Baltimore. If you ever make it to a tattoo show, let us know, and we'll go out there and we'll get a tattoo from you. But it would be an honor, actually, to Nebraska. It would be an honor, actually, to get a tattoo from an artist who I greatly appreciate for the thought that they put in for what they do. And I know Mocha says 14. And hers are bigger and more colorful than mine. Mine are generally small doodles. I like lots of small tattoos instead of having, like, real big ones. I'd rather have 100 small ones throughout my body than 5 or 6 big ones. But everyone's different. That's the great thing about tattoos, is you get to decide how you're going to adorn your body, which is pretty amazing. And you get to decide the artist, and you get to decide the design. You get to design. It's actually, in my opinion, and it has been since I was a kid, a beautiful art form for both the tattoo artist and the person getting it. It's that participation seems to be the word today. I mentioned that to Mocha earlier. Hey, Duncan. Otto says he does big tattoos. It's a good thing that you're in such good shape, because that takes a lot of stamina on your part, on your end, for sure. I was fairly young when I got my first tattoo, and it wasn't a super popular thing to do at the time. You had certain type of people got tattoos. Boy, were my parents upset. Not my father so much. He just sort of shook his head and was like, yeah, that's what he does. My mom was upset. Her father would not have let her date a guy who had tattoos. Um, but from a young age, I always knew I was going to get a tattoo. And you never get one. I don't know if I know anyone who has one tattoo. Um, tattooing, Aldo says tattooing is a spiritual job. It has always been since the beginning of time. I agree. I mean, the Celtics, tattoos on their face, across the body, Japanese. Mocha says only half of hers are relatively large. No, but you have really good, Mocha has really good designs. And all of them are meaningful for her, which is important for me. It doesn't have to be for everyone. You know, again, we get what we want to get, what means something to us. I talked about that earlier this morning, the significance of meaning, that in and of itself, the things of the world stemming from emptiness have no inherent meaning in and of themselves. And that includes us, as we are universally, quantum physically, 99.99% empty space. However, we are blessed with awareness. We are blessed with being pure consciousness. And that allows us to provide meaning to the emptiness. It's also, Aldo says it's also about aesthetics, 100%. That's the great thing with being the participant in that situation. You're not just someone getting a tattoo, and you're not just someone who's giving a tattoo. It's a participation of consciousness displaying itself through the artistry of design. And you get to do that with your body. Canvas, work of art. It's already a work of art. That's why some people say, why would you take your beautiful body and mark it? Because it's a beautiful body that I am adding something to. I'm providing a specific meaning of design. You don't look at a blank canvas is actually beautiful. The emptiness, the capacity, the allowance of that blank screen, signifying the emptiness, the spaciousness, pure consciousness of awareness. And yet, we're allowed to put whatever captures our imagination in that canvas. Mocha said that she had 0 when she met me, which is true. I held her down and forced her to get a tattoo. Aldo says, I always like to say, we become a team to create a work of art. Exactly, participants, working together on a deep, deep level. So it seems to me, and I think that Aldo would say this the same, that it's a deep connection between the person receiving the tattoo and the person giving the tattoo, the artist. As with any art, because you're taking a living canvas of the body and you're putting complete trust in what that person is doing. Duncan says, I think I should get one with an arrow saying this way up. But what if you're doing a headstand? What would it say if you looked in the mirror? Up this way. Am I getting that right? Otto says he's apologizing. Sorry that I forced her to get a tattoo. For one, I suggested she get one tattoo. And then how many did she say? 18? 18 tattoos later. And Otto also says that, yes, we exchanged spirits. It's a beautiful way of looking at it. To me, you look at any painting. I mentioned that with Mocha when she was taking a photograph of butterflies. How a true artist, you're not just taking a photo, you're actually removed from the process. It is pure observer effect. The observer becomes the observed, that um, there is only that one thing occurring. Participants, a participant. We can't even say participants because it's not two people participating in one thing. It's just that participating itself in a spontaneous fulfillment of desire right there. Uh, Duncan asks if I have any memorable scars. Not really. Um, I got a tiny scar on my forehead, very faint, from running into a tree branch on a 50K, right above my eye, a little bit lower, and it would have stuck in my eye. And I broke away, and the branch stayed in my head. And a friend came running up, and I thought she was going to take the branch out. And she said, hold still, hold still. I want to take your picture. So I have blood streaming down my face and half a hunk of tree limb hanging out before she helped me take it out. Later on, she got stung by a ground wasp, same race, and the wasp is stuck in her, and she's yelling and she's screaming. And I go running up to help her, and she goes, wait, 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 take a picture first. Ultra runners, absolutely crazy. Duncan says physical scars, not emotional. Don't get me started on emotional scars. Yep, same race. I was actually stung 9+ times by ground wasp on that race. I have a friend who was stung even more. There's a reason why Mocha decided to never do that race. That wasn't my first ultra, but it was the same course as my very first ultra. And the very first 50K I've ever done, I was stung by 3 or 4 times by ground wasp. It's funny that I stuck with racing for as long as I did after that experience, but I fell in love with it. It is a sport like no other. Anything I've ever done, hard to describe. Hey, Derek, how are you? Brutal sounding races. That was all one race, actually. But almost every ultra in its own way is brutal. In some ways, though, less brutal than doing an all-out 5K. Only time I've been really close to getting violently sick was in a 5K. Not 100% true. I did get sick in a my very first 24-hour race, actually. That was mainly from all that liquid in my system for such a long period of time, and the motion. We were in a swamp, but from all-out effort, it was a 5K that did me in. So, Derek, Osiris, have you met Mocha? Mocha is here. I'm sure you've heard me refer to her. Mocha, this is Osiris, Derek. Derek was actually an early inspiration for me. His channel, his workouts, and as well as me deciding to start my own channel. I'm sure Mocha will pop up and say hi. We were talking tattoos. Derek's got some pretty great tattoos as well. Arm, shoulder sleeve. By the way, mentioning Derek and tattoo and arm sleeve gets me thinking arms. That Derek, your heavier work that you're doing with the bench, overhead press, the rows, the deadlifts, definitely paying off. It'd be interesting for you to look at your own videos from like a year ago and see the difference, because you're bigger, but just as lean as you were, probably leaner than you were just a year ago, just even a few months ago. So it'd be interesting to check that out. I have the opposite effect. I look at my videos from a little ways back and I think, boy, have I aged that much in that short amount of time? Um, so I try not to go too far back and look at them. Aldo says, Brother Osiris is ripped. He definitely is. That's a impressive gains for sure. So we're talking tattoos. We're talking scars. Duncan had asked about any scars. So anyone wants to mention any impressive scars that they have, specifically, if it involves a knife fight, shootout somewhere, anything along those lines. Duncan says that when I was at school, about 14, we all used to push and shove to get a large metal cabinet where our books were stored. I can see the direction this is going to go. I think we have an interesting scar story coming up. Derek says that he was just looking at September, October of 21. So not quite a year coming up though. Trying to get singles and doubles at 180. Yesterday I saw, this morning actually, that you paused, which is a game changer. Duncan says the one lad pushed me to get through and I scraped my finger on the metal corner. It left a scar to this day. A few years later, at age 18, the lad young guy was killed in a traffic accident riding his bike. That's sad to hear. You know what though? Interesting. You have that scar as a reminder of that young kid, sort of a emotional connection, a little bit of a memory lingering on. Yep, actually, Duncan just went on to say that I see this scar today and think of him. His name was Chris Stapleton. Well, Duncan, here's a moment, just a bit of silence to your friend, Chris Stapleton. Interesting how we make those connections, what we carry on with us, be it a scar or a memory. In a way, if we stop and think about it, a memory is nothing more than an emotional scar, not necessarily a bad one. And I agree, Aldo, rest in peace. In Vedic, yogic, and even Buddhist terms, they call it samskaras. Samskaras. Anything I say in Sanskrit, by the way, anything I pronounce in Sanskrit, anything I pronounce in English, invariably, including this word, is going to be pronounced wrong. So keep that in mind when I say things like that. Derek says that his big scars were from being hit by a bike, hit on his bike by a truck, almost died. Lots of scars. Grateful to be here. Rest in peace, Chris. Derek, I listened, this was a while back, probably last winter, to the podcast that Joe and Lee did when they interviewed you. And I remember you talking about your accident and your fight back to doing what you're doing, which is an amazing journey. Definitely would like to hear more about that, to be able to come back from such a thing. So in yogic philosophy, Vedic philosophy, Buddhist, samskaras, is an emotional scar engraved in the psyche. It is likened modernly, of course, they didn't liken it to this back in the day, to a record, to an LP, to the groove within the vinyl. Every time you put the needle in that groove, you get the same results. You get the same song. You don't put that needle on a song you've been listening to over and over and expect to hear a different song. It just doesn't happen. Um, it's the same when the needle of the mind falls on the Samskara that we have. We get the same results. Those are the buttons that are so easily pushed by family members, by friends, by teachers, by people who know us. And yet, there's a way to get rid of those emotional scars. So, physically, unless we get plastic surgery, we're stuck with the scars that we have. Sometimes they fade with age, but they serve as a reminder, sometimes in a good way, with Duncan and his friend, sometimes in a painful way, with Osiris, although he can look at his scars and think, this is what I've overcome. This is where I was when this happened, and this is where I am now. Shit, I'm hitting 180 pounds on Paul's bench. So scars can serve a purpose. With those emotional scars, the samskaras that we have, it keeps us trapped. Keeps us imprisoned. That's the word Duncan and I were trading back and forth when we were talking about reps on my yesterday's workout. Emotional prison, though, we often don't even see it. We think that we are Duncan says that he doesn't have any tattoos, but I guess my various scars serve a similar purpose. They do. They tell the story of your life, for sure. You remember the Jaws movie scene where they compare scars and stories? Yes, actually, that popped up on YouTube a few months ago, and watching them do that. It's an impressive scene. I remember how that movie impacted me as a kid. Just the sheer terror that it was able to produce. So, physical scars will fade, or our meaning when we look at them can change. But those emotional scars, almost impossible to get rid of. But we can. We can meditate. We can do breath work. We can anything that brings us to a sense of surrender. Anything that brings us to a sense of awe. The last few days I've been quoting Rumi, the Persian poet, and his beautiful line from a poem, sell your cleverness for bewilderment. And it stops me every time I think about it. Sell your cleverness for bewilderment. By cleverness, he means opinion. By bewilderment, he means awe, marvel, wonder, curiosity. That we are a mystery within a mystery within a mystery, never ending. How we get rid of those emotional scars? Spend time in nature. Spend time in silence. However your approach is to spending time in silence. Herman Melville says silence is the only voice of God. Listen to God. Prayer, meditation. It could be dancing. It could be burpees. Enter the silence. Be healed. That's how we get out of samskaras. That's how we get out of those emotional grooves that tie us down. They imprison us because we're always going to have the same emotional response to what life offers. Angry people stay angry. People with grievances stay, what's the word I'm looking for? People in grievances. People in grievances, generally, they stay full of grievances. They have a chip on their shoulder. They walk around as if the world owes them something because life is so hard. Remain grieved. Thank you, Duncan. And Duncan says that his scars haven't faded, actually. My little one I have from hitting the tree has faded. Wasn't much of a scar to begin with, but it's still there. When I look close, I can see it. And a couple of little things here and there that I have. Mainly these days, it's wrinkles. things like that. Oh, I got a scar on the back of my neck. Last year I had skin cancer, and it was removed. Next Monday I go back to the dermatologist to get checked again. Things you do as you get older, a lifetime of being outside, backpacking, running, all kinds of stuff, you pay a price for later. Hopefully you don't. Aldo says, fitness helps my scars to heal, even though they're worn away. They will not hurt. Fitness is a great way. As long as we're not doing it for that outer identification. And when I look at you guys on Sunday, it's a spiritual conversation that you guys are having. Milka says that they identify so strongly with their grievances that they become who they are. Exactly. You actually sum that up much better. I was at a loss. So you and Duncan definitely helped with that. Identified with their grievances. And we live in an age of grievance politics, actually. Derek says, one thing, the lines of scars is stories. That was a large lesson that I am still learning from my crash. I had to reinvent myself. I had to learn how to tell a new story with who I am. It's a beautiful way of saying it, because not only did you have to tell a new story with who you were physically, but as you're insinuating there, emotionally, spiritually, everything that you wore at one time, you have to let go. Of course, we do that all the time. There's the Sufi line, we have to learn to die before we die. That's how we gain freedom. And your crash provided you that opportunity to become more so, to reveal yourself and build something new. Definitely the symbolic phoenix rises from the ashes. Derek says it was in seeing that you can tell my eyes. I actually have bifocals. I'm not wearing them now, but I do need to wear bifocals. I should not admit that publicly. It was in seeing this that the profoundness struck me. Again, still learning the power of reinventing the story of who I am. But you know what, Derek? It's so interesting that you are still learning, because those who think that they've learned have shut themselves off from the mystery. We're always the deepest Buddhist teaching isn't of reincarnation, it's of rebirth, which is a subtle difference. Reincarnation is one thing coming back. Maybe it's something other, maybe it's something different, but it's still one thing coming back. Rebirth happens every single moment. We're not the same person, even remotely, from one moment to the next. Although, because we hold on to those emotional scars, those emotional issues, those emotional buttons, we bring it all back. But every cell in our body in a certain period of time has actually died and been reborn. We are something physically, as well as emotionally, as well as spiritually, something different in each and every moment. Sunday GFTS is definitely my church. Aldo says same. I see it. I definitely see it. With not only what you talk, but anyone can get together and have a conversation. But it's a deep dialogue that's told through the emotion, told through the bodies, told through a conversation, told through the connection. Mocha says, if my emotional scars become physical, I would be nothing but scars. There would be nothing left of me. I know. I'm always sorry for that too. It is a deep pain that you have. And you bear it well, as better than can be expected. And from the first moment we had conversations about things like that 20 plus years ago, I was always struck not just by your ability to heal from things like that, but as well as to forgive. We mentioned that before. Um, a big difference. Not that I'm saying, that you forgave and forgot and walked away, that it still didn't affect you, but you were able to forgive some things that amaze me. Always reminds me of, um, always reminds me Mark Twain and his quote on forgiveness, that forgiveness is the fragrance of the violet shed upon the heel that has crushed it. That's true forgiveness. Um, it's actually how the universe works. It's how the flower works. It's how everything works. But going back to grievances, we bring our grievances back into the equation. And that's how we go through life. Those are the Samskaras that we have. So, Alden says, powerful words, Osiris. And Duncan says, hey, what doesn't destroy us makes us stronger. Isn't that right? Or different ways of looking at it, Duncan. I agree, but what doesn't destroy me makes me stronger, but in a way that is completely different than how I viewed strength once before. There is strength in being vulnerable. There is strength in knowing that you can forgive and you can be untouched by those things which seek to destroy you. That true strength, I always come back to thinking about it in terms of trees. The strength of a willow versus the strength of an oak. Both are strong. And yet it's the willow as it bends that survives the storm. And it's the oak that carries the scars of losing branches, toppling over. The beautiful thing is I've seen oaks that have fallen and the branches grow into trees of their own. Always a beautiful sight in the forest, in the woods, to see those trees actually becoming, continuing. So how we view strength, what makes us stronger? I don't know if we get stronger. I think not in that way, not emotionally. I think that, again, my oft-quoted David, Michelangelo, being in the stone. I know Mocha's been hearing this story. You guys only get to hear this story for the past couple weeks that I've been doing these talks. Mocha's been hearing these same stories for 20 plus years now. Imagine the patience that she has. Michelangelo was asked how he carved David from a solid block of marble. And his answer was that David was always in the stone. He just took away everything that was not David. To me, that signifies that type of spiritual strength that we have. Duncan says, out of weakness comes strength. A quote from the Bible. Exactly. The meek shall inherit the earth. When Jesus said the meek, he wasn't talking about being fearful, being timid, being frightened. He talked about meek, translated from biblical terms in this sense, means humble, knowing our place. And knowing our place means that we are actually the universe itself. Our very meekness signifies the power from which we come and of which we are right now. Otto says he loves that story. So do I, Otto. That's why I quote it every single day. Every day I get in front of the camera. I do some Instagram talks now too. So twice a day. And then Mocha takes a walk with me and she gets to hear it 3 times a day. Duncan says very applicable to training. I agree 100%. Mocha says people often confuse vulnerability with weakness. I 100% agree with that as well. And yet it's those who are willing to be vulnerable who are truly strong, because you will not be hurt. And if you are hurt, you will not be stopped. And if you're stopped, you will find a way to continue. Um, Vulnerability is the way through life, because you're allowing yourself to feel. You're not shut off from any aspect. You're growing, you're expanding, you're becoming. If you are stoic, not in the traditional Greek philosophy of being stoic, which can be a beautiful way of maneuvering through the world, but the modern interpretation of being stoic, which is unfeeling, unflinching, not showing our vulnerabilities. The original Stoics would glorify in their vulnerabilities because they knew they were participating. That's the key word again for today, that they were participating with every aspect of life, that they were part of this wonder, they were part of this beauty, they were part of the curiosity of simply being alive, and that everything experienced, good or bad, through that vulnerability of allowingness, made them who they are. Again, going back to being reborn, rebirth. Vulnerability means that you are rebirthed in each moment, something different. I don't want to say more complete. We can't get any more complete than we are now, but we can realize our completeness in a much deeper, meaningful way through that sense of vulnerability. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Okay. Part of starting my original burpee channel, and part of coming here and having a conversation, has been about putting myself in a position of vulnerability. Running out of words doesn't seem to happen so far. As I keep talking and talking and talking and talking, eventually I will run out of words, and I will be what Rumi says, I will be bewildered. Bewildered at my own silence, bewildered at my own sense of not knowing anything at all. The wonderful thing about discovering yourself as emptiness is you talk forever about emptiness. You never run out of things to say, ever. And Mocha says, yes, I have, meaning that she has heard all of this 1,000 times before. And the truly most wonderful thing about Mocha is she will hear all of this again tomorrow. And she will just continue on doing what she does. Not a care in the world. Never once saying, I've heard this 20 plus years, every single day. Never once. So you can't beat that. So, guys, I think I'm looking at the time. I'm coming up on 45 minutes. The goal has been less than an hour. Some days I make it, some days I don't. Days like this always goes longer because I have such great people putting in so much inspiration, information. Just, it's a shame that I don't know how to send the invitations, to have an actual conversation with you guys. Just training alone, there is a lifetime of information from every single one of you and what you've accomplished. Mocha has done her share of ultra races. We're probably the same number, thereabouts, and including Fat Asses, which is, an unorganized ultra event, which originally stemmed from Get Off Your Fat Ass and Run. I've done over 100 ultras in just about 10 years, and she's up there too. And all of you guys have just done so much physically, as well as the emotional stories that you'd all have to tell. What a great conversation we could all have. One day I will figure it out. One day I will ask Mocha to figure it out for me. So that's the only way. It's the only way it's ever going to get done. The only way it's ever going to get figured out. If I say, "Hey, Mocha, can you help me? Um, when is Mocha coming on the lives? That would be awesome." I agree 100% that it would be awesome, and it has been put out there. Um, Derek, thank you. Really appreciate you being here. Duncan, Aldo is saying, when Mocha coming on live, that would be awesome, and it would 100% be awesome. Aldo, if you don't mind taking this opportunity now to personally say, "Hey, Mocha, could you please come on a live chat, maybe even tomorrow?" Um, she might be more apt to oblige a new friend than me. So we'll see. All right, guys. So I agree, Aldo. It was a beautiful talk. And Duncan, thank you as always. Thank you for the online conversation that we were having. Interesting thinking about those numbers and how we imprison ourselves and then we measure our fitness just by those numbers. So I actually think that using that word imprison was a very apt description. Mocha, you got the invitation there, direct from Aldo. Would you please bless us with your wisdom? Mocha says, "Ha." I believe "ha" means yes. It's actually a very deep spiritual yes from the straight from the root chakra coming up to the diaphragm. Ha. As in, yes, I would be pleased. All right, guys. I will see everyone tomorrow. Tomorrow for burpees, and then again later for a talk. Signing off now. You guys have a good rest of your day.